Explain the nuts and bolts here of what the Journal is saying that Facebook uncovered.
Right. So they're referring to an email exchange, which, by the way, they haven't seen the emails, according to the report, and we certainly haven't. We don't know where they got them. But apparently there was this exchange back in 2012, around the time that the FTC was handing down this consent decree punishment about Facebook and its privacy practices. And at the time, there was an interchange among a couple of employees at Facebook, including Mark Zuckerberg, about certain types of information on millions of Facebook users that were available on this third party's app, available to its users. And the question went along, something along the lines of, is this possible? And is there anything that we should do about it? And then the exchange went on after that. But again, it raised questions about what did Facebook know? What did Mark Zuckerberg know? When did he know it? Did the company take adequate steps to deal with privacy concerns on the data that was leaving the platform?
Now, based on my read of the Journal's reporting here, there's also an indication that this happened around the time of the FTC consent decree that Facebook agreed to abide by,
right,
and indicated that perhaps abiding by that decree or following those new orders was not a priority for Mark Zuckerberg. However, a spokesperson for Facebook said in a statement today, at no point did Mark or any other Facebook employee knowingly violate the company's obligations under the FTC consent order, nor do any emails exist that indicate that we did. So, Shira, how do we make sense of that?
Look, the issue is this is why companies settle litigation, or they settle internal investigations and regulatory probes. That inevitably what happens whenever somebody goes crawling around an executive's email inboxes is that things come out that may not reflect well on those executives. We've seen this over and over again, including in the case of Facebook last year, regulators, lawmakers in the UK released this kind of selective disclosure of, again, emails and internal documents from Facebook's earliest days that did not, again, paint Mark Zuckerberg in this flattering light, that he appeared to be this kind of very money-grubbing sort of executive who cared much more about Facebook's bottom line and growth than he did about protecting users. And so, again, we've seen this movie before where emails can be released that, at least without additional context, may not look great for these companies, and that's why we may see Facebook settle this FTC case as they may do other similar cases.
Well, and the FTC does have the option of taking Facebook to court, but as I understand it, that would be a little bit more risky for both sides. They might get less. Facebook, meantime, has said they've set aside $5 billion for a settlement here, and we've been waiting for news about this settlement, but it hasn't happened yet. Tom, what is the latest on that? Right.
They've set aside $5 billion, which I hasten to add is chump change for Facebook, which is, throwing off billions of dollars. Is that enough of a penalty? And are there people in the government, in the regulatory side of the Trump administration, who are saying, well, that's not enough? And so we do have to kind of ask the question of, do we have evidence? And we don't know where it came from, but do we leak it to the Journal or other publications that might, as Shira pointed out, portray Zuck and other people at the company in an unflattering light and raise questions about whether the $3 to $5 billion that we think they might be fined is sufficient? Should we go to the place where we ask them to change their practices and extract a bigger chunk of flesh from Facebook?
Meantime, Shira, the punches keep coming. There has been another faked video posted on Facebook, this time of Mark Zuckerberg in the style of the Nancy Pelosi video. Facebook has decided not to take it down. Meantime, Mark Zuckerberg has reportedly called Nancy Pelosi a couple of times, but she has not returned his calls. So the plot thickens.
It does indeed. Look, all this goes to show that The only bipartisan issue in Washington right now is hating on big tech companies, Facebook most of all. And we've seen this from Nancy Pelosi, we've seen this from Donald Trump, who again in recent days has said that, yeah, we may need to take a look at the monopoly power of some of these big tech companies. And also he said that Facebook and Google and other tech companies, they suppress conservative voices. There hasn't really been evidence of that. But again, you've seen on both the left and the right sides of the political spectrum in the United States that Facebook is not popular.
So, Tom, what's next?
Well, we're waiting to get the consent decree. We're waiting to see what the settlement is going to be, what kind of fine is going to come down. We're also looking at what, this division of big tech between the DOJ and the FTC. What does that hold for us? DOJ, it sounds like it's gearing up for some kind of a probe of Google. DOJ also will have, oversight of Apple. FTC's got Amazon and Facebook. So lots of potential for headline risk to these companies in the months and weeks ahead.